Guys, you're welcome back to my channel. So today's story is going to be different. Like, it's not going to be the usual stories that you've been hearing before now. Yes, and trust me, this is not a fairy tale. You understand? It's not a fairy tale. You know why? Because um it is not also one of those romantic stories you watch in movies and roll your eyes and be like, wow. No, I beg, this can, like, it can't happen in real life. No. So this one, um it happened. To, let me not mention name anyway. So honestly speaking, guys, sometimes when I think about this, I still shake my head, laugh. You know why? Because if someone had really told me, or have called my attention then, that a random rainy afternoon would connect me with a billionaire, yes, a real time billionaire, guys, I wouldn't have, like, I would have told them to stop watching too many Nollywood films. But here we are. Here we are today. This is my story. This is my story of how I met a how I met a guy, sorry, and how I didn't actually, believe in him, and how that one particular encounter changed everything forever, right? So, sorry. I'm having some distraction. So I'm going straight now to the story. I already put it down. So all you need to do is to please give me your attention. Listen very carefully so that you don't miss out on any of these stories, okay? So it started like any other, hectic Lagos day, the kind of day where where you wake up feeling very tired, but you don't have the luxury to roll over because rent won't actually pay itself. So on that particular day, I walked to a small printing press on the mainland. Yes, like, although nothing fancy, but that place really kept me afloat. Hi, welcome, guys. So it kept me afloat. So that morning, I remember dragging myself through traffic, clutching my bag like it contained the secret of the world. That is my boss, actually. Guys, welcome, Mr. Livestream. Uh, Unfortunately, I've not yet gotten to that stage, but I believe that very soon you can actually donate, okay? So, um, hi, welcome, guys. Welcome. So, like I said, when we got to my boss office, that was Mr. Daniel. He was already in one of his moods, guys. He had shouted at me for a mistake he made, but in that office, I was the youngest. To be sincere with you, so everything was, somehow my fault. Actually, everything was somehow my fault. So by the time I was, it was already closing hour for work. I was just grateful. You know why I was grateful? Because I wanted to have a breath of fresh air again. So I walked towards the bus stop, calculating my tea fares like a mini accountant. You know that feeling as a Nigerian girl that I am. Guys, welcome. So there was even a small debate in my head about whether I could buy meat pie on the way, without breaking my transport budget. But then, Lagos life teaches you mathematics, whether you like it or not, honestly speaking. Then, suddenly, the sky changed. You know how Lagos rain behaves. So 1 minute the sun is out, everybody's sweating, then suddenly the sky just, turns dark like a scene from a horror movie. So at that point, I sighed, muttering under my breath, honestly, not today. You know why? But because I know that rain doesn't answer prayers. Honestly, it doesn't answer prayers. So within minutes, it started raining. That is how tough Lagos can be sometimes. But took welcome. So at that point, when it started raining, I ran to a small kiosk by the roadside side, joining two other people hiding under the zinc extension. And at that point, the air smelled like, wet dust, and the ground was already becoming a mini river. So at that point, I stood there hugging my bags when I suddenly noticed, someone very close to me. So he himself, he didn't blend in it at all. He was just standing, beside a sleek black SUV parked not too far away, you understand? So he held an umbrella, but then he wasn't rushing like everyone else. He just stood there, calm, like rain was part of his schedule. That was what I was thinking in my mind. And his white shirt was so clean, so crisp, like I almost hissed. Lagos dust should have humbled him by now, honestly. So the woman selling under the kiosk leaned towards me and whispered into my ear, "Fine bobo. Na person get money be that oh." So at that point, I rolled my eyes, like pretending not to actually notice him. At a point, I was like, rich people and their drama, you understand? So but by then, Lagos reminded me who was boss at that point. So a downfall bus sped past, and before I could even dodge, the next thing I see is splashes of dirt and mud, like a full wave of muddy water. It baptized me immediately from my head to my toe. Guys, my skirt, my legs, even my handbags, they were all gone. And at that point, I screamed. That woman, the woman at this kiosk even screamed too because she was surprised. She screamed, but she laughed over it. You know that kind of funny, sometimes you fall down mistakenly and they start laughing at you. At that point, I was frozen, dripping like a sacrificial chicken and lamb. And that was when he came very closer. He ran towards me with his umbrella, concern written all over his face. And he was like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" He asked his essence, like someone who spent, what is it called, more time abroad than here. So I wanted to snap back, but honestly, I was too embarrassed. I was too embarrassed, honestly. And he offered me his handkerchief, white, clean, probably is expensive, honestly. I stared at it and I was like, if I touch that thing, it will never be the same again. I muttered under my breath and he too, he chuckled. Something about his calmness, annoyed me at that particular point in time. Like, why wasn't he also soaked like the rest of us under the rain? Why was he looking like a TV advert in the middle of a flood? Guys, at that point, he said again, "Gentle, please." You know that gentle and guy man, way of things. So I have no option. I took the handkerchief reluctantly and I thanked him. As a matter of fact, I mumbled, wiping my face while my brain started calculating how long it would actually take for it to wash that, for the rain to wash off all the muds that these guys splashed on me. So he asked if I was heading somewhere. I nodded, explaining that I was on my way home actually. So he offered to drop me off. So immediately, my suspicious Lagos girl mode activated, guys. You don't just enter random rich men's car in this city. That is how you can actually disappear within a twinkle of an eyes. No. So at that point, I smiled politely and said, "Sir, please, thank you very much. I pass." But the rain wasn't stopping, honestly. In fact, it was getting worse. And all these Lagos Danfo drivers had already doubled their fare. Sometimes in Lagos, when it starts raining like this, they will double their fare, like their tea fare and all of that. So it was so annoying. So at that point, this guy noticed my hesitation and he said something that made me laugh till today, guys. When I remember his word, it made me laugh. He said, "You don't have to worry. I'm not a kidnapper, at least not today." Hey God, that is to say that this guy actually knew what I was thinking. So the way he said it with that, dry humor made me to burst out laughing despite my situation. That was the first time I saw his smile properly. Guys, it wasn't the polished fake smile of someone that is trying too hard. No, it was warm, disarming, annoyingly, and this guy is charming. He's extremely, very, very charming. Still, I didn't enter his car that day. I don't know. Should I call it pride or call it, common sense? I wouldn't know. I just thanked him again, pulled my skirt together, and I dashed into the nearest bus like a wet cat that was escaping from a bathtub. But little did I know that that day was the beginning of how things is going to change in my life. I honestly thought that I will never see him again the moment I left. But then, as they say, Lagos has millions of people. You can meet someone today and never cross paths again in this lifetime. So imagine my shock when 2 weeks later, I walk into a quiet cafe at that was in Victoria Island, and there I met this guy again, and he was like, "You see, my colleague book, like my friend, yeah, yeah, girl." She introduced me to this that cafe guy, and she said, she told me that they have nice meat pie, soft and soft cake, and some coffees that we can actually you know pull through and have something nice. So I followed her after work because we both needed to do the, release of some stress. So it had been a crazy week on to me, to everybody, and to Mr. Daniel, our boss, was he was, beginning to act like the printing press was, NASA and all of that. So at that point, we found a corner table and placed our order. I had barely, removed my scarf when Buki Ebo jabbed me like in the rib. So he was like, "Girl, look behind you. See, just turn, use style and turn." So at that point, I turned immediately. But during the process of me turning, I nearly poured out my drink. And lo and behold, it was him, the umbrella man, Mr. Calm in the Rain. He was dressed in another shirt, talking to someone who looked like his assistant. And he was seated by the window, laptop open, like he owned the place. Actually, like I was even wondering, maybe he's the owner of that place. But Buki raised her eyebrow, my friend. She raised her eyebrow. And she was like, now your destiny helper be that too. I was like, yeah, shush, who be your destiny helper? Not be me and you. So um at that point she asked me to calm down, that you never can tell. You understand? She was like, fate would actually, bring us together and all of that. But at that point, when Buki went to the restroom, because at a point when we are standing there, my friend wanted to use the restroom. So when she went to the restroom, this guy looked, up. And at that point, our eyes met. For a brief second, like everything slowed down. He recognized me instantly, actually. And, that slow smile spread across his face. And before I could even look away, he stood up and walked towards me, honestly. The moment this guy got to where I was, he was like, "Rain girl." That was what he called me that day. He said when he got to my table, he started teasing me and all of that. But girls, I laughed, honestly. I laughed. So at that point, he asked me if he could join me at my table. Well, I had no option than, to nod. You know why? Mostly because my brain was still catching up with the coincidence that happened previously. So we started talking. It was easy, surprisingly easily. Those conversations that just flow. 1 minute you are talking about the rain, and the next minute you are debating whether agege bread is is superior to sliced bread. You know those things. So this guy told me his name was Tunde actually. Yes, just Tunde. I was like, Oga, what is Tunde what? Don't you have a surname? But no surname, no titles. He said he worked in business. You understand? So after all those introductions and all of that, we got talking and all of that. So at a point, my friend returned. The way she sized up this guy almost as if she was additional, like she was, weighing his worth, weighing everything that, has to do with this guy, maybe how much he's worth and all of that. But honestly speaking, at that time, I wasn't even thinking relationship in my mind, honestly. My life was just too packed with bills, work stress and, survival mode. A fine man was nice, but I didn't need distraction at that point. So before leaving, he asked if he could see me again. I almost said no, but then something in me said, why not? So I gave him my number straight away without even hesitation. So that was it. So the first impression, which is the last impact. Okay, let me just proceed. So our first official meetup was supposed to be casual. So he suggested we have lunch at a restaurant. I only see sometimes I see their advert on Instagram. Like I've never even visited that place. So I could remember during that period, I googled the menu. Like when we got to the cafe where we are going to, have a hangout and all of that. This guy, we made orders and omo, when you don't have money, that poverty mentality in you, it will surely tell on you wherever you go to. That happened to me. So when I walked in that afternoon, I almost, turned back. The place screamed money, like the cafe was smelling full of money, honestly. So um the interior decor, everything, air condition, the aroma that comes out from that place, it sound like, it feels as if like you are in a London restaurant. But then guy man just, he grabbed a seat immediately. He stood when he saw me walked in, like the normal gentleman Nigerian man in him. Those things that we watch in movies. For some reasons, guys, that small gesture really, really melted my heart. What it means or how it feels like you being a girl and you went out on a date and your man, the moment he sighted you, he stood up to, grab a seat for you to sit down, you understand? And that was it. So at the end, our lunch really, really went well. We talked about everything. We talked about our childhood, Lagos traffic, why Nigerian wedding starts at 10 a.m. on papers, but actually it begins by 2 p.m., Nigerian times and all of that. This guy really, really made me laugh. Honestly, he made me laugh so much that my cheek starts to hurt me. But there was something odd anytime I asked personal questions, like where exactly he work or if he own, any car. Like there are some questions that I would throw at this guy. He would just deflect with humor. At first, I thought he was just being, modest. But then, when the bill came, I tried to reach for my bag, to do that fake, like, okay, I'll handle it. Let me pay my share and all of that. The gesture that we women will do sometimes. But before my hand could even reach my bag, he waved me off and was like, don't try it. You understand that he's going to pay. Maybe next time I can pay for the next, outing and all of that. I was like, no problem. Next time, no problem. So I didn't actually know why my heart skipped when he said that. I didn't know. So that was how it all went. So after that day, we started seeing each other more often, sometimes for lunch, sometimes we just take a walk on the beach. And he was always kind, attentive, and totally different from other guys. You understand? He never bragged. No, this guy never bragged for once. He never showed off of, if anything, or maybe he owns anything. Like literally, he downplayed himself so much that I started thinking maybe he was just a regular guy, with good taste. So one evening after a particular stressful day at work, this guy showed up outside, my workplace unannounced. I was surprised seeing him. He said he just wanted to, drive me home because I sounded tired on the phone. Guy, Nobody had ever done something like that thoughtful for me before, honestly. And I obliged. Like I said, okay, no problem. Guys, I remember sitting in his car watching him, hum to, songs and all of that. And for a brief moment, I allowed myself to imagine, what if? I started thinking, what if this, what if that, what if that? But that just by the way. So it wasn't until about 2 months later that things started getting strange. Like a lot of things started changing, everything and all of that. So on that video, come on, video. So on that particular Saturday morning, we were supposed to meet up for a breakfast. At that point, I arrived at the cafe, quite very early, unlike before. So as usual, he came a little bit late, but like very late that day. I tried calling him, but his number wasn't connecting. At that point, I got pissed off. I was irritated. I even at a point considered to leave, to leave him. Hi, Mama. Good evening. Welcome. How you doing? Then suddenly, I sighted two black SUVs pulled outside. Thank you, Mama. Thank you. So when the SUV pulled outside, I saw four men in suits. They stepped out first. They scanned the environment and the area like as if they were bouncers in the movies. And then these guys stepped out of the car. I didn't almost recognize him honestly because he was wearing a sharp navy blue suit flanked by security details, honestly. And everyone at the cafe suddenly went silent. Like it was like watching a celebrity walked into a regular booker. You understand that type of a thing. Thank you for the likes, Mama. Thank you. So I started like I stared, I stood there lost. I was confused. Like, what is really going on? This is not the guy I used to know before. Like, is this really Tunde, the umbrella guy, just like I always call him? Who is this? Who was he? So at that point, he saw me. He smiled that awkward, like he gave me that awkward smile and walked towards me. Like the entire cafe was literally watching. Everyone that came around was watching. People were beginning to even whisper. My heart at that point started beating so fast that I could even hear it even in my own ears. So when he got down, he entered and he met me where I was and he sat down. I didn't actually waste time. I picked it up at him. I asked him, what is going on, guy? Tell me something. I need answers. You understand? This guy sighed, like for the first time. He looked so uncomfortable. Like there is something, like he said to me that there is something that he needs to tell me, but please, I should not freak out. I should not react too much. I said, okay. I folded my arms. I asked him one question. Are you married? This guy burst out laughing, like almost choking in his coffee. But he said, no, 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 no. God forbid, that's not it. Then I asked him, what is it? Just go ahead and tell me. He wasn't just in a business, actually. He was the CEO of one of the fastest growing tech companies in the country. Like the SUVs that packed out wasn't borrowed at all. Because I was thinking that those cars that pulled out with those guys that came out in suit, like they were all borrowed. You understand? But it wasn't borrowed at all. The house he always refused because I've asked this guy severally to actually take me to his house, but he keep rejecting and interjecting and all of that. He just keep showing me the picture of his house and all of that. Guys, in short, this guy was a billionaire in disguise, a real one, not all those types that you see on Instagram and all of that. At that point, I sat there blinking, like, when your brain refused to, process information. That was how it was. Like, it was at that point for me. I was just trying to, gather myself to actually, put together what is really, really going on. But, so that was how the whole meeting went. So for weeks, this guy had been, acting like he was just a regular guy because that was the way I'm seeing him. like no air, no bragging, no nothing, nothing. It doesn't even show like he even have the money and all of that. But meanwhile, his security was outside monitoring my a lot of things. So when I started this guy, I didn't even know whether to laugh or cry or, slap him for, keeping this whole secret away from me. But then what do I do? At that point, I just feel like, let me just calm down, honestly. So he said that he hid it, like he didn't want to tell me or, disclose his identities to me because he wanted someone who would really, really, like him or love him for who he is and not for his wealth and the money that he do been burned before, like he had disappointment over the years from girls, some of them cheating on him, some of them they became like they agreed to date him simply because of his money. So automatically he has gotten his own share of the disappointment and all of that. So because of it, he hid his true identity from me. Guys, you know what? I understood, but then I was also overwhelmed. And all of a sudden, I felt like my simple world had, collided like a reality that I wasn't even prepared for. So, after some days that he told me the truth about he really was, my mind was still, a storm. Sometimes I sat at work staring at my work, but in my mind, all I could see was the moment this guy walked into the cafe. Like I was literally overwhelmed. I wasn't just shocked, honestly, as if I'm honest, but then I was intimidated. So this guy wasn't just the man I thought he was, or maybe he was, or I don't know. And I just never saw the full picture that made me question everything between us. So at that point, I started replying, every moment in my head and all of that, the jokes, the meal, the driver, the beach walk, like where those things really, really, really real? Or am I just watching movies and all of that? Guys, the reason why I'm contemplating all these things because I grew up around people who struggles, like people that life has really, really dealt with them to the point that they were not opportune to afford a lot of things that they were supposed to afford. Like literally people who work for every single thing they own. Like nobody ever appeared out of nowhere in shining cars and expensive watches. But my word was simple. It was structured and predictable. So his words felt like a different planet actually. But deep down, I wasn't sure if someone like me belonged there. Like, do I really, really fit into this guy's shoe? Are we compatible? You know, a lot of questions started going on through my mind. So that it. So later on, after some weeks, when we met again a few weeks later, it was, at a quiet restaurant. He booked out a private corner, maybe to make me comfortable. But then the moment I saw him, guys, I froze. I remember sitting down, looking at him and, feeling this weird mix of, anger and affection. But he apologized, honestly. He apologized for hiding his true identity and he explained why he did it. You understand? He also told me about how people around him changed when they found out about his true identity. But then I don't have any option. I believed him. I could, literally see the sincerity in his eyes. But believing him didn't actually raise the war that had suddenly appeared between us. No. So I told him that I needed time to think about whatever and all those things that has happened. And he nodded. He didn't just push it or force it. He said that I should take all the time that I needed. You understand? That he's going to wait for me until whenever I'm ready to, respond back and all of that. So the next few weeks were a tug of war between my head and my heart. Like my heart remembered, when the man who made me laugh on the raining days, who listened to me rant about my job, like who picked me up when I was tired. Like my head, on the other hand, it kept reminding me of the gap between us, not just the financial aspect of life, but lifestyle itself, the expectations, and the entire universe we both lived in. Like every time he invites me to, go out to anywhere, I felt out of place, honestly. And places he invites me to, they are, fancy restaurants, private events, like his friends' houses in Banana Island. Like everyone looked polished, everyone carried themselves like they belong. And then there was me, wondering if my outfit was, too cheap, if my shoes were out of, place, like if the way I spoke gave away my background and all of that. And this guy would always tell me that I was perfect. Like he would always look at me and be like, I'm perfect, that I'm good, that I didn't need to change for anybody. I should, remain myself and all of that. But those insecurities whispers louder than, when I was in his word and all of that. Hi, Mama. Good evening. How you doing, Ma? Please give my video a thumbs up, okay? Welcome to my live video. So one night, this guy invited me to a small dinner with his business partners. I almost said no, like I almost declined the offer, but he insisted, like it would be casual. When I got there, casual men, like casual. When I say casual, thank you, ma, thank you. Casual, like when I got there, like the casual meant, like I meant, are the men that I see, like they are all in suits. And when you see women in that place, they look like they were sewn into their bodies. Like these people are amazing. So I sat down there trying to act normal, but then I could feel a lot of persons looking at me, not hostile, just curious, like they were all staring at me. Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. So, after that night, after the outing, something shifted in me. And at that point, I started withdrawing myself slowly. You understand? I started replying to his messages late, avoiding his calls. Sometimes I make excuses about being busy, why I was not able to pick up his call. At that point, it wasn't because he did anything wrong. No, it was because I was scared. I was scared of being, swallowed up by a word I didn't really understand. I was scared of losing myself. I was scared of being not being enough. And this guy really noticed it. Of course, he did. So one evening, he drove to my place unannounced. And when I stepped outside to meet him, he looked so tired, not physically actually, but emotionally. And he said, I don't know what is really going on with you, but then I can feel that you are trying to withdraw yourself. You are trying to pull away. So if I've done anything wrong, please tell me and I will apologize. Like this guy started, apologizing over a crime he didn't even commit, because in his mind he was like, maybe he has offended me, that made me to start withdrawing. I wanted to talk, I wanted to explain everything, but the fears, the insecurities, the silent questions, the pride stood in my way actually. And I shrugged and said, nothing is wrong, guy. I'm just busy with work. So this guy looked at me for, for a moment. Then he said softly, I can face competitors, board meetings, and crazy business deals. But you see this thing that is happening to you now, watching you slip away without saying a word. That is the most hardest part of it all. And that night, this guy just turned and left. The moment this guy left, I cried. Not because of what he said, but because I knew this guy was right. And yet, I didn't know how to fix my relationship. I don't know how to fix everything that has happened and all of that. So weeks turn into months actually. We still see each other, but less often actually. The easy flow we had in the beginning was, replaced by careful conversations, like we were both tiptoeing around something fragile. And he do try to bridge the gap, actually, yes. And sometimes I try to, pretend and smile that everything was fine. But deep down me, I was already drifting. Then came the day that a lot of things changed. So it was on a Saturday afternoon, actually, that kind of Lagos afternoon that felt really, really heavy, like the sun was, watching you too closely. So he invited me to an event, some foundation gala his company was, sponsoring. I didn't actually want to go, but he said it would mean a lot to me if you are there. Mama, thank you very much. So he invited me, and I went. I agreed that I'm going to, honor the invitation. So getting there, I spent hours, honestly. I spent hours to get prepared, to prepare myself and all of that. Even I had to do some extra things. Thank you. I even have to do some extra things by because I didn't have much on me that period. So for me to attend his offer, I have to borrow some dress from my friend, and she made promise to walk in like I own the place. But then the truth is, the moment I stepped into that grand hall with chandeliers glittering like stars and people laughing, in expensive perfumes, guys, I felt small, invisible, and exposed at the same time. Honestly, I felt really, really exposed. So he found me at the entrance of the place, smiling like teddy bear proudly. So this guy came and held my hand. He led me inside actually and introduced me to people. For a whole while, I tried, like I literally tried to smile. I literally tried to answer some questions, and I followed conversations, about whatever investment that he's making, and when it comes to policies that even like whatever discussion that they are having at that point, I try to flow. You understand? So during one of the toasts, because at a point we had a toast. So during that period, a woman came up to me. She was, very beautiful, stunning, confident, with the air of someone who had never worried about transport fare in her life. This woman smiled and said, "You are one of Tunde's being like you are the one today has been spending time with Light." Like she tried to know if I was Tunde's fiance or friend, or the one that has been occupying his mind. This woman's tone wasn't mean actually, but then there was something in her eyes, like the curiosity, maybe a little disbelief, like she was trying to figure out how someone like me would fit into Tunde's picture. At that point, I laughed awkwardly and I excused myself. At that point, I went to the bathroom just to, I stood there in front of the mirror staring at myself. You understand? Honestly, I didn't see the woman he kept saying was the perfect one, actually. You understand? Me looking at that mirror, trying to assess myself, trying to, analyze my, everything about me. Like, I didn't see anything good. I didn't even like, I was like, Omo, I didn't fit in the picture. Like, I don't see myself belong in this guy's word. But I left the restroom. So when I returned back to the sitting hall, I saw him on the stage giving a speech. He was confident, actually, commanding, charming, and the crowd loved this guy. And then in that moment, watching this guy up there, I knew that I was standing at the edge of something I wasn't ready to step into. So after the event, he offered to drop me home. The drive to my house was actually very, very quiet. So at a point, he asked if I was okay, and I told him yes, I'm okay. But deep down inside me, I was already making a decision I hadn't fully admitted to myself yet. So a week later, I asked to meet him. Yes, and when we met, we sat at the same cafe where we met on the first time we went out for a date. And when we got there, it felt poetic, honestly, like life was drawing a circle. So he looked at me, probably sensing the weight in the air. I took a deep breath and told him my whole heart. Guys, I told him that I care about him deeply, honestly, that he had brought unexpected joy into my life. But also, I also told him about my fears. of belonging to his life. I told him how I constantly felt out of place in this world, how my pride wouldn't even let me lean on his wealth, how I was ready to fight the invisible battle that came with, being by his side. So during the time of our conversation, he listened very quietly, honestly. He didn't even interrupt me or try to ask me any question at the moment. So when I finished, he held my hand gently and said, I always knew this might happen. I just hope it wouldn't. And that word alone broke me down. We sat there for a long time, not saying anything to each other, just holding hands like two people who knew they were about to let go of something very special. So, when it was time for us to leave, he walked me to the door, he hugged me tightly, and whispered, You will always mean something to me. I whispered back, and you too. Thank you very much. And that was it. So we didn't fight it, actually, no. We didn't argue. We just walked our separate ways and paths. So the weeks that followed were very, very strange, honestly. I started missing him a lot. Like, there were moments I almost called. There were moments I almost picked up my phone to text this guy. But something in me knew that we had made the right choice, even if it hurts. So over the time, the sharp ache dulled into a soft memory, and I do see his face on billboards sometimes, or catches, company's name in the news. Sometimes I'll just smile, shake my head, and keep working. I didn't want it to bother me at all. And people will always say that love always has to end in marriage or tragedy. You understand? To be real. But that's not true actually. But sometimes love itself is a season. It is a chapter that teaches something you didn't actually know about yourself and about the people around you. Guys, this guy really taught me that kindness can really, really exist. So sorry. Nepa has taken the light. Guys, hold on. Let me put on the light. Oh, God. Okay. So sorry. The Nigerian light happened. We're in Nigeria, right? Like I said, this guy really, really taught me that love can actually exist in an unexpected place. Honestly, he showed me that sometimes people wear simple clothes not because they lack anything, but because they are searching for something real. And I learned that love, no matter how magical, needs to align in order for us to survive it. Guys, I didn't even regret meeting him. I don't regret the laugh, the drive, the rain, the quiet moments. Those memories are part of me now, honestly. And if you've listened this far, I really want to say a very big thank you for sharing these stories. Not because it is a fairy tale, but because it is real. Like, it is real in beauty and real in ending. Sometimes you meet someone who changes your story, and not because they will stay forever, but because they will remind you of who you are and what you need. So if this story really spoke to you, please share this with someone who might need to hear it. Do well to also subscribe, so that you will not miss out on any of our story. Okay, so that was how it all ended. You understand? Not with shouting or tears, but with quiet acceptance, right? One thing I know is that life has a way of introducing people into our stories, and for some reasons we don't always understand at first. Some will always say that it's better to leave, but all of them leave fingerprint on who we become. You understand? So I want to ask, have you ever met someone who changed you? Like, even though they didn't stay, have you ever walked away from something because deep down you knew it wasn't meant to last? And if you have had that chance to go back, would you actually make the same choice? I would want to hear your thoughts, your stories. I want you to share your thought and your stories, share your lesson in the comment section, right? Or you can actually share this video with someone who might need a reminder that not every love story has to end in forever to be meaningful, right? So if this story really touched something in you, make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss out on the next story. And if you can actually share this video with someone who loves honest, real love stories. Thank you guys for listening, for feeling this with me, and for growing with me. Guys, until next time, I want you to keep your heart open to love because love will always, it will keep coming no matter how hard you try to fight it. They will still find a way to resurface, to come back to you. Okay, so I'm going to be signing out from here. Thank you guys for tuning in. See you guys tomorrow.